Silence serves the wrong people. My name is Ilja Abbattista and I am done being quiet. I'm a survivor, I'm a consultant, a trainer, a speaker and a coach. I sit on panels and advisory boards and I work inside the very sector that is supposed to be getting this right. And I work one-to-one with survivors who are trying to build something meaningful from everything that they have lived through. Because surviving is only the beginning of the story. I have sat in rooms where I knew things that could have changed everything. I have watched professionals nod, take notes, and then do exactly what they were going to do anyway. I have been thanked, applauded, given a voucher, and escorted back out. And I have watched the silence that followed protect everybody except the people that needed protecting. And that ends here. This podcast exists because those conversations that need to happen aren't happening. And I want to be clear about something from the very beginning too. There are people in this sector who are doing extraordinary work. People who turn up every single day, who genuinely care, who are trying to change things from the inside with whatever power they have. And I want to recognize you because I see you, I work alongside you, and this is not about you. This is about the people who hold the real power, the decision makers, the policy makers, the judges, the people who can change things at systemic level and aren't moving fast enough. Because progress is happening, I won't pretend that it isn't, but it's too slow. And too slow has a cost that is measured in real lives. A judge in Southampton recently decided that 3 boys who raped not only one girl, but 2, on 2 completely different occasions, should walk free because he didn't want to criminalise their futures. And I need to stop there for a moment. Because this was not a mistake. This was not a moment of poor judgment that they instantly regretted. They raped one girl, and then, on a separate occasion, they made the exact same choice again and raped another. That's 2 different girls, 2 deliberate, calculated decisions. That is not a lapse. That is a pattern, and that is predatory behaviour. And the judge looked at that pattern and decided that the priority was their futures. More than once, these boys made a choice. Then they made it again. And somewhere right now, there are other boys watching that verdict who already know. Because I've heard it with my own ears. I've lived in care. I saw this behaviour all around me. And these boys already know that being young means that they can get away with it. Nothing has changed. This mentality is totally antiquated, and the people with the power to change it are still not using it. What about the girls' futures? Who's protecting those? Let me tell you what actually happened in Fordingbridge, because I want you to understand the full picture. And I want you to understand it properly, not the version that gets summarised in a headline, but the reality of what those 2 girls lived through and continue to live through. First girl was 15 years old. She met one of the boys online. She thought he was her boyfriend. She travelled alone to meet him because that is what 15-year-olds do when they think that they are meeting somebody that they trust. And they should be able to do that. And when she arrived, 2 other boys unexpectedly appeared. And she was taken to an underpass. And she was pressured into having sex whilst being filmed. Her ordeal lasted for 90 minutes. And afterwards, the boys asked her why she looked so sad and bought her a drink to cheer her up. Then they walked away and blocked her on every platform. Second girl was 14 years old. She was threatened with a knife. She was forced to leave her mobile phone and her AirTag in a shop so that nobody could track her movements, so that nobody could find her. And then she was taken to a remote field where she too was raped, and they filmed her as well. a knife, a planned removal of every means of being located, a remote location chosen deliberately. This is not impulsive behavior. This is organized. This was calculated from the very beginning. Even the prosecution told the court that this elevated the case to category 1 harm. That's the highest level, citing vulnerable victims, additional degradation and humiliation, violence beyond what was inherent in the offence, and significant planning, including befriending the first victim online to gain her trust before the attack. And the judge looked at all of that and then gave them rehabilitation orders. Now, I need to talk about what that actually means. Not legally or politically, but what does this actually mean? So those girls will carry this for the rest of their lives. Not just a few months, not until the news cycle moves on. They will live with this forever. And the 90-minute ordeal doesn't end when that camera stops. It lives in the body. It shows up in every relationship that they ever try to build. Every time that somebody gets close, every time that they try to trust somebody, every time that they try to feel safe in their own skin. That emotional toll of sexual violence is so profound and it is lifelong. And the research already tells us that. That's not unfamiliar to us. But what I'm talking about right now is not about the research. It's the reality that those girls will wake up tomorrow and the day after and the day after that carrying something that those boys put there. And those boys will wake up tomorrow with a rehabilitation order and their futures intact. Where's the balance in that? That is not justice. That's not even close. And now I want to talk about the footage because we cannot skip past that too. Both of those girls were filmed. Both. That footage exists somewhere, possibly forever. And those girls cannot unknow that, cannot unfeel that. The violation doesn't stop at what happened in that underpass or in that remote field. It was recorded, distributed, consumed by people who watched it and passed it on. That is secondary assault that never ends. And here is the part that I don't even think that people are sitting with long enough. They don't know how many people have watched it. They will never know. Every person that they pass in the street, every person that they go to school with, every person that they meet for the rest of their lives, they will never know who has seen them at their most vulnerable, who watched who watched what was done to them, who passed it on, who still has it and saved it somewhere. This is not a wound that heals. This is something that you carry every single day. The not knowing, the wondering, the shame that belongs entirely to those boys, but gets worn by each of those girls forever. Because that's what shame does. It attaches itself to the wrong person every single time. 90 minutes of pure hell, not knowing if they would even survive it. Their body in a full trauma response, their mind doing everything it could just to get them through it. No control, no choice. Their lives taken over completely by boys who knew exactly what they were doing, who chose to do it, who chose to film it, and who chose to share it and plan it, and who removed every means of escape before they even began. And I know this, and I'm not speaking theoretically. I know what it means to have something done to you that took away every single choice that you had. I know what it means to carry that and to have it show up in places that you just didn't expect. To have it shape how you move through the world and how you trust and how you let people close and how safe you feel in your own skin. It never leaves you and it changes form, but it never, ever leaves. And these boys, just to remind you, walked out of that courtroom with rehabilitation orders. And that verdict sent a message. And I want to be very clear about that message. It said that the girls don't matter. It said that what happened to them didn't matter enough to warrant real consequences. It said that they were unseen, unheard, as so often is the case. It said to every single boy watching, and boys are watching, I know this because I've heard it with my own ears. I grew up in care surrounded by this mentality, and it said that you can do anything you wanted to and still walk away because you're young, because your future matters more than hers does. And it also said to every single girl watching, you can be violated, filmed, humiliated, taken to court, forced to relive every single moment of it in front of complete strangers. And at the end of all of that, the system will look at what happened to you and decide that it wasn't quite serious enough to really punish. That is a life sentence handed to the victims by the very system that was there supposed to protect them. And the boys got rehabilitation orders. And the girls got the rest of their lives. There are consequences to actions. There must be. Not just because justice demands it, though it does, but because consequences are the only language that sends the right message to everybody watching, to every boy who is sitting somewhere right now absorbing the idea that this is what masculinity looks like, that control is power, that taking what you want is strength. And we also have to talk about where the idea is coming from, because it is coming from somewhere very specific. It is coming through to your screens, into your homes, into the bedrooms of those young boys who are being told by people like the Tate brothers, for example, that this behavior is masculinity. That dominance over women is what makes a real man. That's not strength. That is utter, dangerous nonsense being pumped directly into the minds of young people who don't yet have the framework to challenge it. And then we act surprised when these boys plan, organize, and execute the rape of two girls on two separate occasions and film both of them. We have to send consistent messages. We have to mean them. We have to follow through on them every single time. Not just where there is public outcry, not just when thousands of people complain loudly enough that the Attorney General feels compelled to act. But every time, consistently, without exception. Because if the consequence only appears when the public is watching, it's not a consequence. It's just a performance. And those girls deserved so much better from that courtroom. They deserve to sit there and hear the judge say, what happened to you mattered. You matter. And there will be real consequences for what was done to you. Now, they didn't hear that. And that's why we're here. This is far from being okay. And I don't have the words for it. And I'm somebody who always has the words. So this is what silence serves the wrong people is going to do. We're going to talk about what is happening in the news and what it actually means to those of us who have lived it. Not the legal analysis, not the political spin, the human truth of what a verdict, a policy, a funding decision, a closed service actually communicates to every survivor that's watching. We're going to talk about tokenism, about what it actually means when an organization says lived experience led, whether that is ever really true, about payment, about preparation, about aftercare, about the difference between being consulted and being heard. And we are going to talk about trauma-informed practice too, what it looks like when it works, what it looks like when it doesn't, and how to tell the difference between an organization that genuinely gets it and one that has just learnt the language. We're also going to talk about the NRM, which is the National Referral Mechanism, about what it means to have to prove that you were trafficked, about the decisions that get made by people, about people's lives by people who have never lived anything close to what those people have survived. And we're going to talk about perpetrators, about how survivors understand them in ways that no academic study, no police training, no risk assessment framework ever could. Because some of us spent years studying those people just to survive them. And that intelligence is sitting completely untapped. And we're also going to talk about the tools that exist right now. Technology that could infiltrate organized crime networks, that could tell us what is happening in real time, that could put us one step ahead of the people who are currently 10 steps ahead of us. Tools that aren't being used. And it's not because they don't work. Some of it has to do with the data protection approval processes that take so long that by the time it's granted, the gang already got wind and moved on. And meanwhile, gangs don't wait for approval. Neither do paedophiles. And traffickers don't wait for approval either. And we are going to ask out loud why those procedures that are supposed to protect victims keep protecting the perpetrators instead. We will have guests, NGO leaders, journalists, government officials, authoritative voices from across the sector, and most importantly, us. Always us. No filters, no scripts, no carefully managed talking points, but just the truth on record, finally. So who's this for? It's for you. If you sat in a room and felt like a prop, if you've been told that your story, or if you have told your story and watched nothing change, if you have been thanked for your bravery and handed a voucher whilst the professional next to you went home with a day rate, and if you have been called a service user when you are actually an expert, if you have been managed, silenced, tokenized or talked over in the very spaces that were supposed to be created for you, this is also for you. And it's also for the professionals who know that something is wrong but can't say it in their official capacity. The social workers, the advocates, the commissioners who go home at night quietly frustrated by a system that moves far too slowly and protects the wrong people. You're all welcome here. And it's also for anybody who is watching the news right now, feeling that rage in their chest that has nowhere to go. The rage that says that this is not justice, this is not good enough. Something has to change. You two are in the right place. Now, I'm not asking you to simply subscribe and follow. What I'm asking for you is to stop being silent alongside me, to share this with somebody who needs to hear it. Somebody who holds the power and needs to be uncomfortable. Tell the people in your life that this conversation is happening and that they need to be a part of it. Because silence has served the wrong people for long enough. And my name is Ilja Abbattista. And this is Silence Serves the Wrong People.